when I became someone else. Part 1, the beginning. Chapter 1, the train ride. The night was quiet, yet the train felt alive. Its wheels clattered against the tracks like a restless heartbeat, carrying me away from everything I once knew. I sat by the window, my reflection staring back at me, half lit by the dull fluorescent light above, half hidden in the darkness outside. I wasn't supposed to be on this train. Not really. But life has a way of cornering you until escape feels like the only option. I pressed my palm against the cold glass and whispered the name that wasn't mine. Daniel Reed, I murmured. The words sounded foreign, as if I were trying them on for the first time. That was my name now, Daniel Reed. The ID in my wallet said so. The papers in my backpack confirmed it. I had erased the man I used to be, leaving only ashes behind. But as the train rushed deeper into the night, I wondered, could anyone truly become someone else? I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the sound of the rails pull me into uneasy thoughts. My chest tightened. Behind me, somewhere far behind, was the wreckage of a life I had abandoned. Ahead of me was a city where no one knew my face, my voice, or my story. The past was supposed to stay buried, but even then, part of me already knew the truth. Graves don't stay closed forever. Chapter 2, Arrival. The city greeted me with rain. Cold, relentless drops poured from a gray sky, drumming against the station roof. I pulled the hood of my jacket higher, clutching my single suitcase as if it were all that tethered me to this new life. The air smelled different here, salt and steel mixed with the faint aroma of street food. A city by the sea. A city where strangers passed by without a second glance. That anonymity was what I craved most. I found a small apartment above a laundromat, its windows fogged with steam from the machines below. The landlord, an older woman with sharp eyes and too much curiosity, asked no questions as long as I handed her the deposit in cash. Perfect. The first night in that narrow room, I sat on the bare mattress, unpacking slowly. A few clothes, a toothbrush, a notebook with no writing in it, and hidden in the lining of my suitcase, an old photograph. I hesitated before pulling it out. The edges were worn, the image faded, but I didn't need clarity to remember. 3 faces. Mine back when I still wore my real name. A woman, and a man standing beside her, all of us smiling, all of us pretending. I shoved the photo back into its hiding place before the memories could burn through me again. This was my chance to rewrite everything, to start over, to be Daniel Reed, not the man in that photograph. But as the rain tapped against the glass, I felt the weight of my old name pressing against my chest. The city was supposed to be my escape. Instead, it was the beginning of a story I never saw coming. Part 2, the new life. Chapter 3, blending in. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, I began to weave myself into the fabric of this new place. I found work at a small bookstore tucked away on a quiet street near the harbor. The smell of paper and ink became my comfort, the routine of arranging shelves and ringing up purchases a steady rhythm that kept my mind from wandering too far. Customers barely noticed me. That was ideal. A polite nod, a quiet thank you, and they moved on. No one asked questions, and I offered no answers. Sometimes, though, the silence cracked. One evening, as I was locking up, a voice startled me. "You're new around here, aren't you?" I turned. A woman stood under the dim streetlight, her umbrella tilted against the drizzle. She had kind eyes, the kind that seemed to notice things others overlooked. "I guess you could say that," I replied carefully. She smiled. "I'm Claire. I live upstairs above the bakery. You should try it sometime. The best croissants in the city." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Daniel," I said, introducing myself with the name I was still learning to wear. Her eyes lingered on me for a moment, as if trying to read the spaces between my words. But then she simply wished me good night and walked away. It was the first genuine human connection I'd made in months, and strangely, it felt dangerous. Chapter 4, the past in shadows. At night, when the bookstore was silent and the city's lights flickered across my ceiling, Memories slipped back like thieves. I remembered voices raised in anger, secrets whispered but never fully hidden, a confrontation that should never have escalated the way it did, and finally, the silence afterward, heavier than anything I'd ever known. That silence was why I had to leave. I told myself I wasn't running from guilt, only from consequences, but the truth was never that simple. One night, as I walked home, I caught sight of a man across the street. He was smoking, his coat collar turned up, his eyes scanning the sidewalk. For a moment, our gazes met, and something inside me froze. He looked familiar, too familiar. But then a car passed, and he was gone. Just another stranger in the city, or so I told myself. Still, I quickened my pace. Because if he was who I thought he was, then my past wasn't as far away as I hoped. Part 3, Cracks in the Mask. Chapter 5, The Unexpected Friend. Claire didn't let me stay invisible. A few days after our first meeting, she appeared at the bookstore again, this time holding a paper bag that smelled faintly of butter and sugar. "Peace offering," she said with a grin, placing it on the counter. "Croissants, fresh. Don't tell me you've been here this long and still haven't tried them." I hesitated, then unwrapped one. The flaky crust crumbled in my hands, warm and soft. For the first time in weeks, I laughed, quietly, almost afraid of the sound. "Good, right?" she asked. "More than good," I admitted. And just like that, a small thread connected me to someone in this city. Claire started dropping by often, sometimes with pastries, sometimes just for conversation. She asked about my past, but always lightly, respectfully, as if she sensed there were locked doors I wasn't ready to open. I told her fragments of half-truths, that I'd moved here for a fresh start, that I used to live inland, far from the sea, that books had always been a safe place for me. She listened without pressing, and in return, she shared her own life, her parents who still ran the bakery, her dream of opening a gallery for local artists, her love of the city's restless energy. For the first time, I felt the possibility of belonging, a dangerous feeling, because belonging meant roots, and roots made it harder to run if I ever had to. Chapter 6, The Man in the Coat. But the city has a way of reminding you that the past isn't gone. One evening, after closing the shop, I caught sight of him again, the man in the dark coat. He leaned against a lamppost across the street, cigarette glowing in the shadows. His posture was casual, but his eyes were locked on me. I froze, my pulse hammered. He didn't move toward me, didn't say a word, just watched as I fumbled with my keys and slipped inside the bookstore's heavy door. The next morning, I convinced myself it was nothing, a trick of the mind, paranoia feeding on guilt. But 2 nights later, he was there again, different corner, same eyes. This time, when our gazes met, he smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. And suddenly I knew, he wasn't just a stranger, he knew me. He knew who I really was. Chapter 7, Flashback, The Breaking Point. That night, memories flooded back sharper than ever. The living room bathed in yellow lamplight, her voice rising, his voice louder, cutting through hers, accusations flung like knives. I stood in the middle, trying to hold the storm together, but storms don't listen. They tear through everything. Then came the shove, the crash, the moment everything went silent, too silent, the kind of silence you can never take back. I remember staring at my hands, shaking. I remember the taste of metal in the air. And I remember running because staying meant questions, and questions meant the truth would spill out. That was the night I buried my old self, the night I decided I could no longer be him. Chapter 8, Claire's Curiosity. Claire noticed my unease. She always noticed. "You've been distracted lately," she said one afternoon as we stocked shelves together. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just tired." She tilted her head, unconvinced. "Daniel, or whatever your name really is." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" She laughed lightly, but her eyes lingered on me with quiet intensity. "Relax. I just mean, sometimes you talk like you're not used to being here, Like you've lived 100 different lives before this one. I exhaled slowly, masking my relief with a chuckle. Maybe I have. But her words lingered, because if she could sense the cracks already, how long before she guessed the truth? Part 4, the first twist. Chapter 9, the confrontation. It happened on a rainy night. I left the bookstore late, streets slick with water, neon lights reflecting in puddles. As I turned the corner toward my apartment, he stepped out of the shadows, the man in the coat. "Evening," he said, his voice calm, almost friendly. I froze, my throat tightened. "You've done a decent job hiding," he continued, lighting another cigarette. "New name, new city, not bad." He exhaled smoke, studying me. "But you didn't really think it would last, did you?" "Who are you?" My voice cracked despite my attempt at strength. He smirked. "Let's just say I'm someone who remembers you, someone who remembers what happened that night." The rain hammered down harder, drowning the silence between us. "I didn't," I started, but the words died in my throat. He stepped closer, eyes gleaming. "Does Claire know who you are? Does she know what you did?" My stomach twisted. He knew about Claire, he knew too much. And in that moment, I realized, running hadn't saved me. It had only delayed the inevitable. Part 5, Threads Unraveling. Chapter 10, Sleepless Nights. That night, after the man in the coat confronted me, I barely slept. The rain kept tapping against my window, and each drop sounded like a warning. Who was he, really? Someone from that night? A witness? Or worse, someone tied to the people I had left behind? I replayed his words over and over. "Does Claire know what you did?" The thought of her smile, her warmth, tangled with the memory of blood on my hands. Two lives colliding. My past had seeped through the cracks, and soon it would flood everything. I paced the floor until dawn. When the first light finally bled into the sky, I looked in the mirror and whispered to my reflection. "You can't let him control this. You've come too far." But my reflection didn't answer. It only stared back, reminding me that no matter what name I wore, the man underneath hadn't changed. Chapter 11, A Visit from Claire. Claire came by the bookstore that afternoon. She noticed the dark circles under my eyes, the way my hands trembled slightly as I sorted books. "Rough night?" she asked softly. "Something like that." She leaned on the counter, watching me with those piercing eyes that seemed to see more than I wanted her to. "Daniel, you can tell me if something's wrong. You don't have to keep everything locked inside." I swallowed hard. If only she knew. If only I could confess without destroying the fragile world I'd built here. Instead, I forced a smile. "I'm fine, really." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push further. Instead, she placed a small sketchbook on the counter. "I made this for you," she said. Inside were rough charcoal sketches of the bookstore, the harbor, even the old laundromat I called home. On the last page was a simple drawing of me, head bent, reading a book. I stared at it, my throat tight. No one had looked at me like that in years, as if I was worth capturing, worth remembering. "Thank you," I whispered, meaning it more than I could explain. But the gift only deepened my fear, because I wasn't the man she thought I was, and if she ever found out. Chapter 12, The Shadow Returns. It didn't take long for him to appear again. This time, I found him waiting by the pier, leaning casually against the railing as gulls screamed overhead. I could have turned and walked the other way, but some part of me knew running wouldn't solve anything. "You've been busy," he said, flicking ash into the wind. "New friends, new job, almost like you're pretending to be normal." I clenched my fists. "What do you want from me?" He smirked. "Simple, I want you to remember." "Remember what?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "That night, the lies, the blood on your hands. You can bury it under new names and new cities, but it's still there. And sooner or later it will surface." The sea crashed against the rocks, salt stinging the air. I tried to steady my breathing. "If you know so much," I said, "why haven't you gone to the police?" His smile widened. "Who says I woe?" And then he walked away, leaving me trembling on the pier, the waves roaring like accusations. Chapter 13, Flashback, The Choice. That night, the memories came sharper, as if his words had pried the lid off a box I'd fought to keep shut. The argument had started small. Accusations, betrayals, secrets finally spilling into the open. I remember her eyes, wide with fear, shimmering with tears. I remember his anger, his voice like thunder. And then my own hands, shoving harder than I meant to. A sickening thud, the silence that followed. I had stood frozen, staring at what I'd done. Not murder, not exactly, but not innocence either. I chose to run instead of confess, to let the truth rot in silence, to bury myself in a new name. But the man in the coat, he wanted to drag it all back into the light. Chapter 14, The Ultimatum. He cornered me again a week later, this time outside the laundromat. "You think you can just play house here forever?" he sneered. "No, you owe a debt, and sooner or later you're going to pay it." "What do you want?" My voice cracked. He leaned close, his breath heavy with smoke. "When the time comes, you'll know, and you'll do exactly what I say, or everyone here will find out who Daniel Reed really is." His words coiled around me like chains. For the first time since starting over, I felt truly trapped. And when I turned, I saw Claire across the street, watching us, her brow furrowed in concern. She had seen everything. Part 6, The Net Tightens. Chapter 15, The Questions. Claire didn't say anything that night, but the next morning she came into the bookstore early, before I'd even flipped the sign to open. Her face was pale, her arms crossed as she leaned against the counter. "Who was that man?" she asked quietly. I froze. "What man?" "Don't play dumb, Daniel. I saw you. Outside the laundromat, he looked threatening." I forced a laugh that sounded hollow even to me. Just someone asking for directions, nothing important. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me." The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. Finally, she sighed, shaking her head. "You don't have to tell me everything, but if you're in some kind of trouble, I want to know. I can't keep pretending not to notice." Her words pierced me more than the man's threats ever could, because she cared, and caring made her vulnerable. I looked away. It's nothing I can't handle. But the truth was, it was everything I couldn't handle. Chapter 16, Messages in the Dark. It started with notes. Slipped under the bookstore door after closing, tucked into the pocket of my coat. Short, sharp lines written in jagged handwriting. "You can't run forever. Tell her the truth. Confess before I do." Each note twisted the knife deeper. Every time I opened one, I imagined Claire finding it instead. Imagined her eyes widening, her hand trembling as she read the secrets I had fought to bury. One night, I burned the notes in an ashtray, watching the flames devour the paper until only gray flakes remained. But fire couldn't erase the fear crawling under my skin. He was circling closer, tightening the net. Chapter 17, The Harbor Meeting. He waited for me by the harbor again, as if the sea itself was our witness. "You look tired," he said casually, lighting another cigarette. I glared at him. "If you're going to destroy me, just do it already. Stop playing games." He exhaled smoke slowly, his smile sharp. "But games are the fun part." "What do you want?" My voice cracked. "Money, I don't have any." He shook his head. "Not money, something else." The gulls shrieked overhead as he leaned in closer. "There's someone I need you to meet. Tomorrow night. Don't be late, or I make a phone call that changes everything." My stomach dropped. Whoever he wanted me to meet, it wouldn't be good. Chapter 18, Flashback, The Final Words. That night, sleep dragged me back into memory. Her voice trembling. "We can't keep living like this." His voice booming. "You're not going anywhere." And me standing between them, heart pounding, words spilling out without thought. "Stop it, both of you." Then the shove, the crash, the sudden silence. I remember kneeling beside her, my hands sticky with red. Her eyes fluttering shut, her lips whispering something I'll never forget. "You'll regret this." I woke gasping, drenched in sweat, the echo of her words ringing in my ears. The truth was a chain I couldn't cut free from, And now the man in the coat was dragging it into the open. Chapter 19. Claire's Discovery. The next day, Claire walked into the bookstore holding something in her hand. A crumpled piece of paper, one of the notes. My blood ran cold. I found this near the steps, she said, her voice shaking. Daniel, what is this? Who's writing these? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. She stepped closer, eyes blazing with hurt. You've been lying to me, haven't you? She whispered. You're not who you say you are. Her words were a knife to the chest, because they were true. But before I could answer, the bell over the door jingled, and there he was, the man in the coat. He smiled as if he owned the room. Perfect timing, he said. I was just about to introduce myself. Part 7, the first reveal. Chapter 20, the stranger's name. The bookstore was silent except for the rain tapping the windows. Claire stood frozen, clutching the note in her hand, while the man in the coat leaned casually against the counter as if he belonged there. Let's not waste time, he said, eyes locked on me. I think it's time Claire knows who you really are. My throat closed. Don't. But he ignored me, turning to her. His name is Daniel Reed. That's a mask, a convenient little costume. The man you think you know, he used to be someone else entirely. Claire's face went pale. What is he talking about? I couldn't speak. I felt my knees weaken, the walls closing in. The man smiled, his voice low and deliberate. Your friend here used to be Matthew Cole. The name struck me like a slap. It was my real name, the one I had buried, the one I had sworn never to hear again. Claire's eyes widened. Matthew, she looked at me, searching for denial, for explanation. Is that true? I couldn't answer. My silence was answer enough. Chapter 21, the past unearthed. The man's voice carried like poison. 3 years ago in another city, there was a woman and a man and a fight that went too far. His eyes gleamed. And when it was over, someone didn't get back up. Claire gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. That's not, I stammered, but the words crumbled. It wasn't. He cut me off. It was what? Your fault, because we both know it was. You ran, you hid. You built this little fairy tale with a new name, but you can't outrun the truth forever. The bookstore spun around me. My breath came shallow, my heart pounding against my ribs. Claire whispered, Matthew, tell me he's lying. I looked at her, the woman who had seen me as someone worth sketching, worth trusting. And for the first time since I'd come here, I wished I could lie convincingly. But my silence screamed louder than any words. Chapter 22, the stranger's demand. He stepped closer, tossing his half-smoked cigarette into the trash. Here's the deal. I don't care about your guilt. I care about leverage. You want me to stay quiet? Then you'll do something for me. My hands shook. What do you want? A smile crept across his face. Tomorrow night by the docks, midnight, bring Claire. Claire flinched. What, why me? He ignored her question, his gaze fixed on me. Do that, and maybe your secret stays buried. Don't, and I'll make sure the police, the newspapers, and everyone you know gets the full story about Matthew Cole. And with that, he walked out, leaving the door swinging behind him. The silence he left behind was deafening. Chapter 23, Claire's Fury. When the door finally closed, Claire rounded on me, eyes blazing. Is it true? Her voice cracked with anger. Everything he said, was it true? I swallowed hard, my voice breaking. It wasn't what he made it sound like. It was an accident, I didn't mean. An accident? Her laugh was sharp, bitter. You let me trust you, let me care about you, and the whole time you've been lying about who you are. I had no choice, I whispered. If I stayed, they would have destroyed me. Her eyes filled with tears. You destroyed yourself the moment you ran. Her words cut deeper than the man's threats ever could. Chapter 24, Alone Again. That night, Claire didn't come back. She didn't answer my calls. I sat in the empty apartment, staring at the old photograph hidden in my suitcase, the three faces smiling as if nothing could ever shatter us. But everything had shattered, and now the pieces were sharp enough to cut me again. The man's demand echoed in my head. Bring Claire. Midnight, the docks. I didn't know what awaited me there, but I knew one thing for certain: this wasn't just about me anymore. And for the first time, I wondered if the stranger wanted revenge or something far darker. Part 8, the second twist. Chapter 25, the decision. The hours crawled by, each one heavier than the last. Midnight was closing in. I sat on the mattress in my apartment, staring at the suitcase in the corner, the one with the photograph hidden inside. My past was no longer just a ghost. It had taken shape, spoken with a human voice, and now demanded payment. The docks, Claire, Midnight. I couldn't bring her into this. I wouldn't. If he wanted me, he'd get me alone. But what if refusing him meant exposing everything? What if Claire, the only piece of light in this city for me, was dragged down anyway? I buried my face in my hands. Every choice felt like a trap. Chapter 26, Claire's silence. I went to the bakery the next morning, desperate to see her, to explain, to beg for her to understand. But she wasn't there. Her mother gave me a cold look from behind the counter and said, "She doesn't want to see you." I walked back out into the street, the weight pressing down harder. She had every right to hate me. I had lied from the moment we met. And now, because of me, she was in danger. Still, some part of me hoped she would come tonight, that she would at least want answers. I both feared and longed to see her face again. Chapter 27, the docks. The air at the docks was damp and sharp, filled with the stench of saltwater and diesel. Midnight hung heavy like a secret. I stood under a broken streetlight, its glow flickering weakly against the dark. The sound of waves slapped against the wooden pilings, echoing like a heartbeat in my ears. Then I heard footsteps. He emerged from the shadows, cigarette glowing like a tiny flame in the dark. His coat swayed in the wind as if the night itself moved with him. "You came," he said. "Good." "I didn't bring her," I snapped. "This is between you and me." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Of course you didn't. You're too predictable, always trying to play the hero when it's already too late." My fists clenched. "Who are you really? Why are you doing this?" He stepped closer, his face finally illuminated under the flickering light. And in that moment, my chest seized. I knew him. Chapter 28, the truth revealed. "You," my voice cracked. "You were there that night." His smile faded, replaced by something colder. "Finally, you remember." And then it hit me, the details I had buried. The living room, the fight, my panic. But in the corner of the room that night, half hidden in shadow, had been another figure. A boy, watching, silent. "You're her brother," I whispered, the realization slicing through me. He nodded slowly, his eyes burning with quiet rage. "She was my sister, and I watched you kill her." My knees weakened. It was an accident, I didn't mean. "Don't." His voice was sharp, cutting through my words. "I don't care about your excuses. I saw what you did, and I saw how you ran, left her there, left me with nothing but her silence." The dock seemed to spin around me. Why now? Why come after me years later? He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "Because I wanted you to live with it first, to think you escaped, to build something worth losing. And now I can take it all away." Chapter 29, the choice. The night stretched long, the waves crashing harder against the pilings. "You've got two choices," he said, voice steady. "Confess, turn yourself in, tell the world who you really are, or I do it for you, and I'll make sure Claire knows the truth in the cruelest way possible." My breath came shallow. Confess and lose everything. Stay silent and let him destroy me piece by piece. For the first time since I boarded that train months ago, I realized there was no escaping Matthew Cole. No matter how many names I wore, I was still the man who ran. And now the past demanded its payment in full.